Hello, my name is Mrs. Leip, and I am here to introduce our new Woodland Reads book for the summer. Our book is called Bearwalker, and it is a survival story that I think you will enjoy. Let me read the back before I read the prologue. Neither human nor animal, but something in between. Baron has always been fascinated by bears, their gentle strength and untamed power. But the Bearwalker legend passed down by his Mohawk ancestors tells of a different kind of creature, a terrible mix of human and animal that looks like a bear but is really a bloodthirsty monster. The tale never seemed to be more than a scary story until a class camping trip deep in the Adirondacks when Baron comes face to face with an evil being that is all too real. The school library journal states that this fast-paced survival story is a great read. And the bulletin of the Center for Children's Books states, Bearwalker spins a striking story. Readers will return again and again to this adventure tale. And Cleat, another I'm not sure exactly what that is. Exciting, readers will cheer Baron on as he proves himself a hero. So this book is a Woodland Reads book for the summer of 2021, but it is a March Madness book for the school year 2021-2022. So by listening to this book, you'll be able to take an AR test and get be able to vote in our March Madness for 2022, which seems like it's a long time away. So I am going to read the prologue to start. I'm writing this in my journal as I lean against an old hemlock. I'm not bleeding so much now, and the writing helps me focus my mind and not fall asleep. I can't allow myself to fall asleep. I have to keep my eyes and ears open. Otherwise, he might creep up on me. People talk a lot about good and evil. Some say that no one is born bad. It's just a result of the way they were raised. But that's not what my ancestors believed. Some beings, some animals and people, and those who are both human and animal at the same time, are Otgant, twisted away from the path of the good mind. All they care for is power, and they're always hungry, the way he is. Did I hear a twig crack? I listen, but I don't hear anything. And that is not such a good sign. On a night like this, when the moon is bright enough for me to see the pages of my notebook and write in it, there's usually sounds in the woods. Unless something big is out there hunting, then everything gets this quiet as I am trying to be. Quiet enough that the Bearwalker won't find me. My Uncle Jules told me about the Bearwalker. Long ago, he said, there was a Mohawk village. One day, people began to disappear. They would go out hunting or to work in the fields and never return. Were enemies ambushing them? Was it some big animal that attacked silently and then carried off their bodies? No one knew. Then one day, a hunter found something that filled him with fear. He ran back to the village to tell everyone. I saw the tracks of a huge bear, he said. We have all seen bear tracks before, another hunter said. What's so special about bear tracks? Ah, the first man said, a shiver of fear going down his back as he spoke. These were no ordinary tracks, for as I followed them, they became the tracks of a man. A long silence descended upon the people. They all understood now why people had been vanishing. They knew now what creature had come to prey upon their people. It was the one they called a monster bear, one of those Otgant beings, neither human nor animal, but a terrible mixture of both. It could take the form of a human or the shape of a great bear. But unlike a real human or bear, it lived only for the blood and death. Perhaps this creature had once been a human, but his lust for power had been so great that he had done the things needed to transform himself into a monster bear. One of those things, and this sent a chill down my back when Uncle Jules whispered the words, was to sacrifice the life of one of his own relatives. When it seemed human, the monster bear spoke with a voice that was pleasing, so pleasing that it would confuse those who heard it, and they would follow they would follow this tall, attractive human without thinking. Follow him even though he held one hand over his mouth as he spoke, and when he smiled, he did so with his mouth closed. This was because even when in the shape of a man, this creature still had the long, sharp teeth of a bear. And when this person, who had been entranced by the monster's sweet voice, had been led deep enough into the forest, then that awful being would suddenly turn and leap with an awful roar. All that would be left of that unfortunate victim would be the bones of that monster bear would carry back to its lair. It piled up those bones and slept upon them as a bed. The villagers had all heard the stories of this gaunt bear creature and had never encountered one until now. Finally, the head clan mother spoke. Her voice was sad. Now we know what has happened to our people who vanished, she said. They've surely been devoured by the unclean being, but this is not the time to become lost in sorrow. We must do something and not just wait to be victims. She looked around the circle of anxious faces. What can we do? Said the leader of the hunters. If the stories about this creature are true, then its skin is too tough for our arrows or spears to pierce it. No weapon can kill it. If we go out to hunt it, it will just hunt us instead. Suddenly, a small voice spoke up. I have an idea, said that small voice. Everyone turned to look at the one who had said those words. It was the littlest boy in the village, the one almost everyone ignored. His parents had died, and he lived with his aged grandmother in a little patched-up longhouse. Although she loved her grandson, she was so old that her eyes were no longer good, so she did not notice that the boy's hair was never combed and that his face and clothes were never washed. In fact, his buckskin shirt and his blanket were full of holes. The name his parents had given him was untamed, which means listener, but everyone in the village just called him by the nickname of Dirty Face because of the way he looked. One of the hunters laughed at the boy. What do you know? The hunter said. You are just a little boy with ragged clothing. Others joined in the laughter, but the laughter ended suddenly when the head clan mother held up her hand. Let the boy speak, she said. I have seen how he sits by the fire listening when the stories are told. Those holes in his clothing have come from the sparks that leap out from the fire. He listens so closely that he does not even brush those sparks away. Little Dirty Face stood up and stepped forward. I remember it being said in the stories that if someone challenges the monster bear to a race and wins, he may be able to destroy it. The people looked around each other and nodded their heads. It was true. That was what one of the stories said. Good, said the head clan mother. This one has spoken well. Now, who among us will be the one to race the creature? Once again, there was a long silence. None of the men lifted their heads to speak up. Even the leaders of the hunters stared down at his own moccasins. If no one else will do this, a little voice finally said, then I will try to do it. I will challenge the monster bear. It was, of course, Adirondacks, the boy everyone called Dirty Face. And this time, no one laughed at him. The boy went out and did as he was said he would do. When the Bearwalker came to him in the shape of a man, he saw it for the monster it was. He challenged it, and the race began. For 4 days he pursued it, making a fire each night and sitting with his back to the fire for safety. At last the Bearwalker could run no further. It fell to the ground exhausted, right in front of the cave where the piled bones of its victims lay. Adirondacks lifted up his bow to shoot the monster. As he did so, the Bearwalker laughed. Your arrow cannot kill me, it snarled up at him. My skin is too thick. Shoot it, and then I will rise up and kill you and gnaw the flesh from your bones. I imagine the boy standing there, his bow drawn back, his arrow pointed at the Bearwalker, the smell of death and decay coming out of the cave where the bones of the monster's victims lie piled up in a great heap. The Bearwalker's teeth are long and sharp. Adirondacks can see the hunger in his eyes, but his hands do not shake. I know your weakness, Adirondacks says. Your heart is hidden behind that white spot on your body. Then he shoots his arrow. That story I loved so much as a child has become all too real for me now. But I'm not the boy in that old story who could run forever without tiring. I don't have a bow and arrow, no weapons at all, and my own hands are shaking as I write this. That's the end of the prologue. I hope you continue listening to the rest of this great book. Happy reading.